Hello, 6th grade. Welcome to video 6.2. This video can be used during lesson 6.2 in your class. It is also going to coincide with this learning target. I can compare quantities by using rates in order to determine the better by. And this is our standard 6RP2. So just for a little review, a rate is a comparison of two quantities that have different units. So for example, Chris drives 107 miles in 2 hours. So we could say that he's going 107 miles in 2 hours. And what are we comparing? We're comparing miles to hours, two different quantities. Okay, the units are different. We're comparing miles to hours. And I know naturally you might want to say to yourself, well, if he drives 107 miles in 2 hours, how much would he drive in 1 hour? Take a minute to think about that. Alrighty, did you do division? 107 divided into 2 hours gives me 53 and a half, 0.5 miles in 1 hour. All right, so I just want to give you a little bit of information on how to go about finding out unit price. So if the cost of 2 cartons of milk is $5.50, what is the unit price? Well, unit means 1. So how much would it be for the 1 carton? And we can set it up as equivalent ratios. So in our previous video, we talked about using our knowledge of fractions and equivalent fractions and setting up our ratios as fractions. And finding the unit price, we make the denominator out of 1. So we're comparing the original ratio to something out of 1. So if it's $5.50 for 2 cartons and we want to get to this 1 carton, we can look at the relationship between 2 cartons and 1 carton, and we know we can divide it by 2 to get to the 1 carton, and we do the same to the $5.50. We do $5.50 divided by 2, and we get to our $2.75 for 1 carton. Here's another example. It's about a cruise ship traveling 20 miles in 50 minutes. How far does this ship travel per minute? So every minute that goes by, how far is this cruise ship traveling if it can do 20 whole miles in almost an hour or 50 minutes? So we set up our ratio as miles to minutes. And we know that it's going to be a certain amount of miles per the 1 minute. And to go from 50 minutes to 1 minute, we're dividing by 50. And what we do to that denominator, we do to the numerator. And 20 divided by 50 is 4/10 of a mile. And just think about it. 20 divided by 50, and we can write it as a fraction, or 20 over 50 is equivalent. If I divide by 10 over 10, I get 2/5. And 2/5 is actually equal to 4/10. And writing it as a decimal is what they did in this numerator. Okay, so why don't you take a minute to read this question and try to solve the unit rate for this question. If an airplane makes 2,748-mile flight in 6 whole hours, what is the airplane's average rate of speed in miles per hour? So if we know how far this airplane is flying in a total of 6 hours, we can break that 6 hours down and find the unit rate. So set it up, press pause for a minute, work on some scrap paper, and come back and press play to see if you've gotten the right answer. So as you can see, I wrote out my miles per hours. I wanted to show what units we are comparing, and it usually helps me stay organized if I write out miles and hours, and then I fill in the numbers that associate with the units. So we have 2,748 miles in 6 hours is how many miles in 1 hour. So this is x, we can put a variable. Well, what's the relationship between 6 and 1? I'm dividing by 6. Very good. And then I'm also going to divide the miles by 6 hours, and I'll find out how much it is per 1 hour. And if you do the math, 2,748 divided by 6 is 458 miles in 1 hour. So that's actually the speed of the plane. That plane is going 458 miles per hour. A typical car on the highway goes about 65 miles an hour. So it's almost 10 times as fast as a car. Okay, take a minute to read this question, set up the ratio, and then find the unit rate. All right, so this question could be a little tricky at first because the original ratio is 18 players to 3 coaches. So something I always do is if they don't give me the unit rate at first, or they they don't have a unit, or they don't want me to find the unit rate, but they want me to find out how many coaches per 162 players, I actually found, well, how many players it would be for one coach. So if it's 18 players for 3 coaches, I know it would be 6 players to 1 coach. And then I found out what times 6 gets me to 162, and it's 27 times as big. So then 1 times 27 is 27. You could also say that 18 times 9 is going to give me 162, and then 3 times 9 is 27. So really, you're using your knowledge of equivalent fractions, and you also could then use unit rate to find out to solve this question as well. So I went kind of backwards, found the unit rate. It was easier multiplication for me. Alrighty, and our last question for the video is the following. Tori cleaned houses. If she could clean 4 houses in 6 hours, how many houses could she clean in 15 hours at the same rate? So her rate is 4 houses in 6 hours, which I think is a very fast rate. I can barely clean my 1 house in 6 hours, let alone 4. So good on Tori. Anyways, if her original rate is 4 houses in 6 hours, and you could actually write houses and then you could put the hours. My handwriting is a little atrocious here. So it's 4 houses in 6 hours. How many houses could she clean in 15? So we have 4 to 6 ratio is what out of 15? I'm going to press pause, but I'm going to give you a little hint. I could do something to 4/6 to make it much easier to find an equivalent ratio, something out of 15. Think about it. Alrighty, so I just knew from my knowledge of equivalent fractions that 4/6 is equivalent to 2/3. And I know that 3 is a common factor of 15. So it was much easier for me to say what times 3 is 15, and that's 5. And I know 2 times 5 is 10. So when I went back to this original, 4 to 6 is what out of 15, nothing times 6 can get me to 15. So I felt stuck. So what I did is I simplified 4/6 and I got 2/3. Something you can also do is cross multiplying. 4 times 15 is 60. And then whatever this numerator is times 6 is also going to be 60. So what times 6 is 60? It is 10. So there's really so many ways to solve these problems, and ultimately your knowledge of equivalent fractions is really going to help you the most. You can find equivalent fractions, you can use cross multiplication, you can find the unit rate. Essentially, you can use all the strategies in previous videos to help you solve these ratio problems. I hope this video is helpful. Feel free to watch it over and over again. Thanks!